Kathleen Black, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm always excited to be here and to chat with you.
So am I. I'm excited to have you here. I saw you limping in. You obviously injured your knee.
I have a little immobility issue right now, but a couple months 4 to 6 months, I'll be back in business.
Yeah, but I don't think anything slows you down, does it? You're relentless.
Apparently. I think it slows me down a bit. The everyday things are hard. Like, I need people helping me, which is super weird, but it hasn't slowed us down in business. We've still been doing all the things.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So here's what I want to do. I want to get into your past. I don't think we've actually really kind of dive into your past before. Then I also want to kind of talk about the different books that you've read and what the differences are.
Yeah.
I've obviously read your book. I think I need another one because I read this by the pool. It's all ripped up.
I have lots like that.
Yeah, but is that how you're supposed to read a book? I just destroy a book when I read it.
I always put on the thumbnail. I don't want to miss anything later. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a great book. And then I just want to get into just whatever we need to talk about, especially I think with what's happening in the market.
Yeah.
I think there's fear in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And I was recently talking about this, that, I think in the last 2 years there was no fear. And when there's no fear, then everybody thinks that it's easy, and it's not.
True.
Right?
True.
So let's dive into your past. Who's Kathleen Black? How did that make you who you are today?
Well, that's a long story. We actually just launched, I was just in California and launched the new keynote that's finally based on my story, which I've resisted doing for a long time. And I think it's because there's a fine line of sharing in a way that's about you and sharing in a way that's to inspire others. And it was really important to me to be like, how do we talk about all this in a way that's going to be helpful to people? So who am I? I don't know. I came from Peterborough. I come from a family in public service.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, both sides of my family. Like, way back, my grandfather came on the train in Depression from Manitoba, but like most of my family in Peterborough are around and farmers and things like that. So yeah, young, my family are almost all firefighters, but I came from definitely a difficult upbringing. My home life was very difficult. I left home very young. I share some things I went through in the recent keynote. When I was quite young, I was arrested and taken to the hospital for mental evaluation, but I was arrested based on truancy. And for those listening, truancy is when you miss a lot of school. Right. But I laugh about it now because I'm like, I missed half of school, but I was an honor student. So I was like, as an entrepreneur, they should have put me up to teach how to do this. But of course, that's not what happened. So it was difficult, I always say now I have a 17-year-old daughter, right? And I was 15 or 16 at the time. And, when I think of my daughter, like being arrested, being on her own, no one to advocate for her, like taken to the hospital, put in the hospital gown, like really said, like, we're going to assess how broken you are. Like, should you be able to be on your own? To think of another young lady going through that, like, that breaks me. But for me, it was just my life. Like, I was already being kicked out of the house constantly, which is why I missed so much school. Right. I was trying to find somewhere to stay or hiding in friends' closets. Their parents didn't even know I was there. It was difficult.
Really?
Yeah, there was a lot of domestic abuse at home, and then my parents separated. It still wasn't a good environment for me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was really hard, and I was constantly trying to get out of it. Finally, it helped me to go to the hospital in the end because the doctor said, like, we have no concerns. You're in a chaotic environment and you're reacting to it, but you have no resources. And if you leave here, you're homeless fully. Like, no one will take you in.
So do you think going through that made you who you are today? There obviously must be some elements to that, right?
Oh, for sure. Like, that time in the hospital was definitely the first time that I stood my ground in a storm when he said, you can leave, but you have nothing, or you can stay and get resources. And think about it, like, looking back, it was a life-defining moment, but at the time, I was scared, I was vulnerable, but I knew I didn't want to go back to what was already happening, let alone making it worse. Right. So I thought, I am going to stay, I'm going to get resources, which meant I left with my dad for a short period of time, and then I lived with a family until I found my way to university.
Right. Who allowed you to get to a point in your life that you believed in yourself? Was it a teacher? Was it a book that you read? Was it something that you listened to? Because there's always that defining moment. When do you think that happened?
You know what? I had some great mentors in high school and in university. I also had some really difficult teachers. Like, I had a grade 8 teacher who sat me down and, you're going to be a juvenile delinquent. Like, you're going to be in prison. You are never going to do well for yourself. Like, just sat me and said it again and again and again. And luckily, I'm sure she wouldn't say this, but I'm so happy I was angry.
Yeah.
Because I think if I wasn't an angry child, I don't know how I would have coped with it. But I was mad. I was kind of like, screw you. Like, who the heck are you as a teacher to say that to me? And you don't know what's going on in my life. So there was a rebellion in those ages. So I wouldn't say I believed in myself, but I believed in not believing in them,
right.
which was something, right?
Right.
And I think it's better than being broken. You know what I mean? Like broken of a spirit, I mean. I think I was broken in lots of ways, but broken of spirit. So, then eventually I got to university, and October 4th, my first year in university, I got a call. I hadn't talked to my mom in several years. It was a voice I hadn't heard.
Yeah.
Said, can I talk to Katie Black? That's what they called me. Yeah, this is her who's calling. Your mother, you have to come home. Your dad's died. Be here for your family. So it was like, in my life, it's been this constant, okay, I think I've gotten out. I think I can have my own bearings, and then just rip back. But I had some great teachers in university, even an English teacher in high school, who really believed in my potential and kind of my capabilities. And to be honest, like every job I ever had, they tried to promote me to manager, like anything. I took a year off school. I went to work at Le Chateau in Whistler because I went and thought, we'll ski and be out here before I went back to university.
Right.
We see potential. We're going to make you, assistant manager. Like, no, I'm going back to university, right?
Yeah.
There were a lot of people who saw it, but I think for me, I always knew I'm a seeker. Like I was like, I'm not there yet. Like I have to keep growing.
Okay.
So.
And what age was that?
Oh my goodness, that was second year of university, so it was probably 21. I took a year and a half off because my dad had died the first year, and I had to kind of cope with that. And then I went back to university, and then I got pregnant. So it's just been, it's like, this is why I said that's a long story.
Right. And so then now you then got into real estate investing. What year was that? And then you also then became a realtor. What came first? I can't remember.
The investing came first. So I met my then husband. He was a firefighter. My sister connected us, and he was starting his first investment property. So I moved back. I had my son, and we started to build like sweat equity. Like we gutted one full property in what now is the Film District, right? Little small semi into like 3 units. Like at the time, we're like, people are like, who's going to live here now? It probably seems spacious, right? But we were doing the move into one, get it livable, fix the other 2, pull the money out, buy the next one. And then we were in Woodbine, and then we were at the beaches. And my ex-husband really wanted me again to real estate. And by this time I had a second child. We're married. And I'm like, I don't want another job. I did not want to get my real estate license. I'm like, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm dealing with all the tenants, all the leases, and I'm like sanding drywall. I'm like, I don't need any more work. But in the end, I did, because we really struggled. Our realtor was lovely. Like, I liked him energetically, spiritually, but he didn't understand the math of investment properties or what we were trying to do. So I was constantly micromanaging him, which you can imagine, not great.
Yeah.
So in the end, I said, okay, I'll get it just to grow our portfolio. But the strain of getting too many investment properties too quickly because they were based on sweat equity, which was a lot of pressure. Like we had nights where I remember 2 weeks not sleeping one time because we had just put too much of a risk. And it was the time of like no money down, like all of that kind of stuff. Anyway. That was
like what, the mid 2000s?
Yeah, 2000, and I'm trying to think like 2005, 6, 7, 8, like all of that span. There was U.S. money coming in with those opportunities. So, you could get a little more creative than
all
now.
All those infomercials at night. You can do this, you can do that.
Yeah, so easy until you don't sleep because you don't have the right advice.
Yeah.
So I got my license only intending to build our portfolio, and then it put a lot of strain on us. We had moved to Oshawa, and it was very clear the marriage wasn't going to be sustainable. So here I was. It was like, what am I going to do? Like, go back to managing dental offices, go do something else, or lean in because everything got frozen. I had 2 little kids. I'm not the breadwinner. So that's when I really leaned into real estate. Like my first year, I sold 44 homes, and it was never... I was on a team.
First year with
the 2 kids in tow, most of it. So I think fear is a pretty big motivator.
For sure, right.
I was pretty scared,
Right, and what allowed you to sell that many homes? What was it? Was it because your back was against the wall?
It's part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if I'm being honest, my back was against the wall. I needed an outlet for the energy of going through what ended up to be like a 5-year, really difficult divorce. Like everything was in trust. And I think there was also a piece of me that just wanted to excel at it. Like I remember consciously making the decision, like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Like I wouldn't take advice from people who weren't really successful. Like I was insistent on being really efficient because I didn't have as much time. So to me, like everything had to be process driven. So like everything I coach now, it's changed now. The training's evolved, but I've lived it.
Right. And you really started building systems within Dan Plowman's team.
Yeah.
And then how did that evolve? And then how did that now allow you to move into Kathleen Black Inc.?
Well, so it was interesting. I was part of the team, but initially when they started the coaching company, I was already involved, like seeing worksheets and kind of from behind. I went to the first events, and eventually I was saying, yeah, I want to get into coaching. I went through some initial training. There were 3 owners very quickly not getting along, and I took over director of coaching when the company was like 18 months old. Right. So pretty new. And I didn't want to take on the other hats. Ironically, I was terrified of director of marketing. I don't know why. And now it's the one thing I'm always so scared to give up. But I took that over, and then a couple years later, I took over the company completely, and I got 50% ownership and found out it was in a lot of debt, almost $200,000 in debt as a very young company. So I wanted to clear that. And looking back, I mean, think as a business owner, if you know what it is to get back in like the black financially and how to clear debt and how to actually operate above board, those are powerful lessons. So later on, when I went to the office to try to go back and found out my key didn't work and the bank had been sent documentation, and basically it was a bet on the fact that I wouldn't stand up for myself, that now the company's cash flowing and we want to go to a different direction. I was like, I sacrificed a lot to build that company. It was like a baby. I missed things with my kids, and I really had one of those moments where it's like, can I look myself in the mirror if I don't stand up, right? Or do I just move on? So in the end, I had to stand up for myself, but it worked out beautifully because I was able to open Kathleen Black. We're switching it to Kathleen Black Incorporated, but coaching and consulting December 1st, 2015. And we did really well. Like the first year we did 35% better than the best year of the prior company, and year 2, 65% better. So, I mean, I was terrified. I didn't want to leave that brand. I believed in what we do, but I think I was more scared that the vision would be gone. I didn't realize it would come with me, right? I was like, it's all gone. But it wasn't. The energy and the shift, and we just had different visions. So they could build their vision, I could build my vision. Like it was a realignment in the end, not a misalignment.
Right. And let's talk about Kathleen Black coaching and what you do for anybody who's listening that doesn't know what it does, because, and I should also let people know that I'm getting coaching from you, and you've got incredible leaders at the company that help realtors grow their business.
Well, not just realtors anymore, like largely realtors, but we're shifting out, right? Even mortgage teams and insurance. And we have an amazing team, first of all, but we also have an amazing community. So I'm really thankful, like clients like you. I think the shift in leadership is really apparent right now, changing from that top-down leadership to collaborative over competitive. It's a really important shift right now. And I think the most important thing we do is shift the narrative in high performance business coaching. We believe in powering up people. So, I mean, some of our experts are mindset experts, or they do energy mapping. Others are all systems business, right? Like it just depends. So I think that combination of we're holistic people in a lifestyle business, and how do we support people in ways that when your business drips into your family or your community, that's positive, because that's really important to me. And I think when I first got into real estate, some of the aggressive techniques or manipulative techniques, like we're all about consultants approach. Why? Because if you change how you do one thing, you change how you do everything. And I feel like the tools we use, I'm a better parent, a better person, a better business person. And I believe in that. You know what I mean? It's not enough just to sell more homes. Like we want to shift into being a healthier community overall. Right.
You touched on something there as well too, where you said it kind of bleeds into your family life. Do you believe in a work-life balance? Is that possible?
No, and I don't at all. I think it's like perfection. It's a myth. It's unattainable, but because I don't like to use but people are sort of like, I believe in harmony, right? It took me 10 years to be able to take like 6 to 8 weeks off in the summer. Not like I still take time at the holidays and March and whatever, but it took it took almost 10 years to be able to just pull out of the business. So as a high performer, I have on seasons and I have off seasons. And not all our clients are there yet, right? And some never want to be. Some are like, that terrifies them to be away from the business for 8 weeks. I love it. But it's figuring out who are we, what's our vision, what are our values. And it's like this, I see it as this beautiful song, right? Like I'm with my kids or when they're growing up so much more in the times that other parents weren't, right? Like you can be a 9 to 5, you're commuting to the job, you're commuting back. Like I talk to parents who are going like, I drop my kids off and it's dark in the morning and I don't see them till 7. And my kids would be like, well, you work a lot, mom. Like you're in real estate or you're in coaching. I'm like, yeah, but I also have all this other time when it's my off season that I have time with you that other parents maybe don't. Right? So it's this, I don't know if that makes sense. It's like this harmony of what's important to you.
It does, 100%, because that was something that, well, I'll share this with you. I'm sure you've heard this before, but when I was working at TD Bank, I was like, I can't wait until I retire.
Yeah.
And when I realized that and said that, I was like, what am I doing? I'm wishing away 30, 35 years of my life. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so then in 2010, when we started Smart Home Choice, we decided that we wanted to do mini retirements. So I was like, well, why wait till the end? Why not retire? Which is essentially what you're saying too. You just slow your business down, where you've got this rhythm of working hard and then playing hard, relaxing, doing what you want to do, and then come back into it. But put those systems and processes in place so that it enables you to do that.
Well, and your team, right? Like people, there's a bad rap often for team businesses in real estate. I don't think it's the same in other industries, but in real estate sometimes. But the reality is like people get sick, people have kids, people get married, like life happens, people burn out. Like without a team, I can't even imagine honestly selling real estate without that support, because it's not just the business owners, it's everybody in that ecosystem, right? Who has the backup and the ability to create the lifestyle that they want, which to me I think is really important. There's a Japanese principle, and I haven't said it in a while. I think it's called Ikigai, like Ikgai. I hope I didn't butcher that. Okay. But it's like this principle about purpose. Like they don't believe in retirement. I've always said, why do I want to retire? Like you want to put me on a shelf to rot away? Like what am I going to do with myself, right? Like I'd go crazy. So I just want to do more and more what I love, and I want to help other people do what I used to really want to do, because now I want to do new things.
Is it almost like reinventing yourself in your own business?
Yeah, firing, the term, I don't know who first said it, but they're brilliant. Like you want to just keep firing yourself, and I'm constantly doing that. We're in a whole other wave of it now. Like even today with our coaching team, I said, hey, like I find I'm still doing this more advanced piece with like the really big teams who are legacy businesses. Like they're trying to figure out how to move the business to their children or other people. So I said, hey, like I want to train other people to do this piece because I'm doing other things. Like I want to help you guys do that. And it's just constant continuum.
I like that. I don't think I've heard like that before. Like always be firing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
And then you can do new things.
You can evolve. You can learn something new. You can grow. You can teach. There's succession planning. There's all that, right? That's happening in that. Let's move into your books. So you've written 2 books now.
2 books.
You've written. Okay.
I'm going to be writing a third.
So we got the top 1% life, and then relentless to rise. Right.
Yeah.
What is the difference between each book if people are listening and they're not familiar with it?
Yeah, so the top 1% life I wrote first, but I really should have written the other one first, but that's another story. Okay. So the top 1% life helps people go from solopreneur mentality into the expansion phase, because we think we go from solopreneur to team, and that's not true. Like there's a huge part in the middle that when we skip it, we go into chaos. And that's where people tap out. They're like, I could make more money on my own. My team members aren't doing well. I'm not doing well. Like you spread, like chaos is when you're pulled in, hundreds of different directions that used to be your goals. And then you got traction. You're like, now I can't sustain all of this. So top 1% life was trying to go back when I started coaching, and I was with everyone one-on-one, and I could help them move through those stages. So I was like, I can't do that anymore, but I want to walk with people in that way, because it's not just a systems transition, it's a mindset transition. So the start of the book is a lot of like the mindset and how to become more fierce and more clear and more confident, and like stop feeding those dragons that are your weaknesses, right? And you're second guessing yourself, because you can't move forward in business, at least not successfully, unless you can get to a place where you trust yourself. It's really hard when you don't. So that book is literally about that transition, shifting from chaos into calm, which I've done many times. So I feel I'm well vetted to do. And then Relentless to Rise is about personal expansion. So it dives a lot. It's based on my story. That's what the documentary was based off of. So it was a much harder book to write. But now when I tell that story, now people come up to me and share like deeply personal things with me. And I was like, okay, now I get it. And the same with the documentary, right? Because I think so often we're ashamed and silenced, and that's like those dragons, they hold power over us. And for me, it's really important to me to say, like, I'm not a statistic, I'm not a label. Yes, I've been a victim of some bad behavior and some bad circumstances, but nothing about me as a person is that identity. I'm not a victim. Those are just some things that happened to me. But I work with so many people who take it on, right? They had a parent who said horrible things and they still hear it in their head and they don't want to tell anybody, right? And they believe it. And that's really sad. That's like, that's not who you are. That was pain maybe like at 8 generations back in your family that somebody passed down, and we just kept believing the same story that was a lie, right? And think breaking that's powerful.
And that's going to be difficult too, to break that cycle, right? I want to dive into that, but before we do, because I wrote down a couple quotes that I really like from this particular book, and I want to dive into it, because I think I should really share this with people, is that you said the eye of the storm is when you have clarity that provides a window into how to act in life and business. You know,
that tension, like when you're in that storm and everything's going wrong and everything's hard, that's actually your most powerful chance to make a change. And a lot of people waste that tension, right? Like it's this call to action, like something's really wrong right now. Are you going to succumb to it? Are you going to go, I've got all this tension in me, it's the best time to make like a brave choice in my favor? And I don't know, I think every single person I've ever helped has had a storm moment that they've made a brave choice.
How do you know what the right choice is? Is it a gut feeling? Is it, do you have to seek help from somebody else? You know, because I get into that eye of the storm many times. I'm like, hey, what do I do? And sometimes you wake up, I'm sure you've gone through this, you wake up and you're like, no, I shouldn't do this. Or you wake up and you're like, okay, maybe I should. Maybe I need to push myself a little bit more. How do you know what's right?
Well, I think first you're thinking of where you want to go in the future, because when you get stuck in the present decisions, we talked about fear and a lot of people are fearful with the market. I mean, we have to understand how our brains work, right? My brain right now, if I don't program myself to say, here's what is really important to me in 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, whatever, right? In relationships or in my business, in my life, my brain will automatically default to the past. And for a lot of us, there's difficult things in our past. So our brain will keep defaulting and make the same decisions that keep us stuck again and again and again. So I find when you're in those storm moments, first of all, sometimes we have to do some healing because there's things we believe that will make us make bad choices. But once you do that, I think it's aligning yourself with, do I have the resources to make choices that are going to have a trajectory that's better in my future? That's a really big part of it. And can I advocate for myself? Because sometimes it's not fair that when we have to make the bravest choices, we don't have stability. We don't have resources. I had a conversation with a woman who runs a shelter for women. And she said, you know, we find we really need to get them that stability so that they can make the best choice. I'm like, that's really hard, because often when you need to make those, you just don't have it.
Right. Is it also, do you think that a lot of people get into business or get into trying to figure out what they want to do in their life, but they don't have clearly defined goals? They haven't written it down. Like, how do you, what's your advice for somebody that's listening and trying to figure that out? Like, how do I do this? How do I know what I should be doing and not doing?
I love that you said this, because it's the first step. And not only do the majority of people skip it, the majority of people want to skip it. And there's a reason why, because great leaders are creators. Great leaders are visionaries. If you're building a business of the future, you have to be a visionary. Managers are about the present, and we really need them. They're really important. But in order to step into leadership, you're trying to bend the future. Like, you're willing to take responsibility that the choices you're making now are creating your future as much as you can. We don't have full control. We're not looking for that. But you're influencing it as much as possible. So think about the weight of that for some people. For me, I want to take full responsibility because I want to be able to influence my future. But when I used to feel like maybe life was stacked against me, or, you know, I'm mad, I'm going through a difficult divorce, like, I didn't want to take responsibility for all those choices. So that's why, like, we do this letter from the future we do in our community is so sacred to me, because it's casting out that anchor out into the future and saying, even though it's hard, I'm going to keep focusing on that and making the small decisions again and again and again to get there. And that takes a lot of audacity. Like when everything around you is dark and doesn't look good, or maybe you just like, give me the new listing presentation, or like, this isn't about the listing presentation, right? So people resist it. And so it's always the first step, the vision, where you want to go. What does it look like? What do you want to embody, right? Like think about when you get into that work, it's like, who do you see yourself as? Where do you want to be in 4 years? Okay, well, describe a leader to me, their attributes, that is already where you want to be. And they start describing. I'm like, okay, let's do an affirmation goal and describe, like, that's what you want to embody this year. And the things that come out, like, I've had women in, sometimes men too, is different, like in complete tears being like, I don't want to be that woman because they're all horrible mothers. They aren't judging them, they're judging themselves, right? Like it's pretty amazing what comes out where you're like, who do I want to be and how do I embody that and really live it? Like not fake it till I make it, like live it authentically, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, that's very helpful. I got another quote here that I really liked as well too. And I resonate with this one. So I believe we are here to serve the world in a much higher frequency. Your purpose is unique to you. It was buried deep within you at birth.
Mm-hmm.
What was that for you?
What was that for me? You know what? I feel like I always say I've been dragged to the future. And I think that when you advocate for yourself, you get in that authentic voice, you feel that way because you get into flow, right? You're like, I want to create, I want to serve. So for me, truly, I feel my life's work is creating this shift out of like, and when I say ego, I don't mean egotistical. I mean like small mind, fearful, repressed, protectionary, right? Like that mind into a consciousness, because when you move into consciousness, you see you have choices. And what's more powerful than to be like, oh my gosh, I've acted that way for the last 10 years. I didn't even know there's like 200 other ways I could choose to act in my benefit or my children's benefit or my family's benefit. So to me, I think that work, like healing work, transition work, shifting work is really behind my full passion in life because it's so possible.
Yeah. But you know what I find interesting here is that it was buried deep within you at birth. And I think that's true. Like it's almost like as if that gift is not on the surface. The gift is buried deep within, and you actually have to pull it out. Mm-hmm. But pulling it out is a lot of work. Yeah. And I think I can relate to that because I hated public speaking. And I've said this many times. I hated public speaking. I hated the sound of my voice. And I would come home after an event and I would tell my wife, like, I'm not talking again. I'm not doing it again. Really? I hate it. Yeah. And a lot of people say, really?
Because you have a radio voice. I'm listening right now.
Yeah. but I never set out to be a leader. Mm-hmm. I just want to get some financial freedom so I can enjoy life. And then all of a sudden I'm doing things, or like it feels as if it's subconscious or it's within me. And I think that's why this particular quote really hit me.
Yeah, it's like I saw Elizabeth Gilbert speak recently, and I really like her because she makes you think, and that's what I love about keynote speakers. But she was talking about how dangerous and detrimental this idea in the last decade or more that, you have to live your purpose has been for people because they can't figure out what it is. But to me, purpose is different from that. It's like, it's something you keep gravitating to, right? It's like a calling in you, and you're right, you keep falling and you clean up, and when you look backwards, you're like, oh, it was all to get to here. And now when things go wrong, I'm like, oh my goodness, now I needed these tools because something's going to happen up the road and I'm going to have needed these now. So I think maybe we see it slightly differently, but I think it's the same thing. Like all these trials and tribulations are in order for you to overcome and expose it and get clarity.
Right. So your purpose, you don't know what your purpose is. Is that fair enough to say? Like as you're going down that path? Because you may not know what the end goal is, but it's a pull. It's a pull to that end goal. Yeah. So you don't know what it is.
I don't think you always do. It's like the Steve Jobs. In retrospect, it all aligns, but on the way moving forward, right? Like I wanted to go to university for journalism. I ended up with women's studies and psychology, and now, I mean, a lot of the things that called me, I'm right back there. But when I was managing dental offices and doing systems and all like scripts and all of this stuff, I never saw it would all line up to where I am now.
It's almost like driving to Florida. You know you're going there, and let's say it's at nighttime, and you have your headlights on, but you can only see so far ahead.
Yeah, true.
It's almost like the same thing, right? Like this is where I'm going. I can't see the whole entire path, but it feels right.
Yeah, it feels right, and it always is real on the inside before it's real on the outside. So often with leaders, like I'm struggling with something, I was like, we need to shift internally your energy, your vision, because when you shift, your world shifts. and you're creating the frequency of your business, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking about shift, I really enjoyed your talk that you did at the last event, and it was titled Shift.
Yeah.
And can you talk about the raft builder?
Yes.
I thought it was so amazing.
I love raft builders, because raft builders, they are in consciousness because they know that they have a choice. But essentially, I'm always really careful that I always say I'm not talking about archetypes. Like, I don't believe you're born a leader, you're not born a leader, you're a victim, you're a villain. Like, I don't believe in that. People are many things, but raft builders have certain behavioral archetypes of how they deal with chaos or problems or obstacles. So we have, it's like you either sink, you bob, or you build a raft, right?
Right.
So you sink in fear, you're like, everything's over, I'm going to lose everything, or you bob around and say, I don't know where I'm going to wash up, so why would I do anything? I might as well just chill out. Unfortunately, the bobbers make everyone else's life really hard because they complain and blame and feel sorry for themselves. But the raft builders, like, they're the most relentless because they're fierce. They're like, I always say, you can drop them in a desert, you can drop them in a pandemic, you can drop them in the middle of the ocean in a big storm, and they are going to hyper focus on where can I provide some essence of goodwill to my family, to my community, to my business. And if I keep providing that goodwill, every little piece is another like piece of wood, another piece of rope, but they're using it to build a raft to go to their most important work, their most important destination. So they're working with what they have to get more, to work with that, to get to their most important places. So it's like if 99.999% of everything around them is dark, they are hyper focused, almost to the point where people would say they're a little bit delusional sometimes, on that 0.0001% that they can influence. And there is such a magic mental like grit and resilient quality in the ability to move into a raft builder space. And the magic is we're all three. I've probably been all three today. I've been a sinker, I've been a bobber, and I've decided to get my act together and build a raft, right? And that's the magic. When you get into the consciousness, you can self-coach and choose that path.
Right. And you know, when you're that raft builder as well too, then really essentially what you're doing is you're being able to pivot at any time.
Yep.
And when you're able to pivot, you're also being open to learn other skills and multiple skills. And I think that's probably the best way to be able to survive anything that happens.
Absolutely.
Because now you're taking, like when I look back at everything that's happened in the last 12 years in this journey that I've been on, and I send out my newsletters and like, there's a new change that's happening. The Bank of Canada's doing this and the government's doing that, and investing is never going to be the same. What I've learned over the years is always about pivoting and adapting. Pivoting and adapting, which is essentially the raft builder. The raft builder can do different things and make it a little bit bigger, or put some walls up along the sides if he needs to, or she needs to be able to survive, whether they're going downstream or upstream or there's a wave coming.
Yeah, and the raft builder sees their value. Like, I don't know about you, Gary, like I'm sure you can think about people who are waiting in the eternal lineup, right? And the eternal lineup is somebody's going to see my value, or they're going to pick me, or they're going to invest in me, or they're going to give me a promotion, or they're going to give me the perfect investment property. It's super easy to say yes. But that line is eternity long on purpose, and you never get out of it. The raft builder's like, I'm going to invest in myself, and I understand I can create my opportunities. Like, I've seen people stuck in really toxic cultures because they truly felt that their ability to provide for their family, their ability to do well came from somebody else giving them that. And that if they didn't leave, they wouldn't have anything. And the raft builders, like you said, you trip and trip to see that seed deep inside of you. You're like, oh no, wait, I can invest in myself and trust myself.
Right. Do you ever feel like you can eventually arrive at your goal? You know, we all have these goals that we want to get to, and you check them off, and I think sometimes you're waiting for this magical moment to happen in the future.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
You know, like there's good and bad to what I'm about to say. I mean, one, anybody who knows me knows I love to hike, I love to journey, I love pilgrimage, like I love that, you know, alone even better, I love it. I love the journey. I truly love it. Like I love the journey of becoming and recreating. I love helping other people on that, right? I love when people are like, I can just dream of being this person, right? Who can contribute or whatever. I enjoy that so much. And I find sometimes when we're too hyper-focused on the actual goal part, it just moves us sideways. It's like there's so many people in the coaching industry who come to us like, I want to summit that mountain, whatever that mountain is for them. Yeah, right? You can imagine number of deals, income, time in the business, whatever. I'm like, okay, great. And as a coach or guide, just like a team leader, we're Sherpas. Like my job is to have the route and the equipment and all that great stuff. It's a smaller percentage of people than the public would probably think who are willing to walk the walk to the summit. It's usually not that they're not capable of it, they are. They're not willing to do the journey. They're not willing to walk the walk. And that's why I love the ego to conscious to collective. That's why I love the keynote shift, because it helps us as leaders to identify, I can't walk for you and I'm not supposed to, but if you can't walk for yourself, I also have to keep moving, right? And that's not a bad thing or a mean thing. We're not leaving people behind. So the end of the day, to me, do I reach some goals and kind of go, oh, that's so weird. I thought it was such a huge goal and now it's here and I didn't think that much of it. Yeah, I do, but I don't think that's a bad thing, because now I see another vista because I got there. So I'm like, oh, there's something else you could contribute.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point as well, too, because this points along your destination. Right? Okay, I got here, cool, now what's the next thing? What's the next thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah, because I think once you feel like there's no goal left, then what's left?
Yeah, and think of the energy of a business, right? Like, Gary, you run a team. I mean, I have an amazing team. I'm grateful for them every day. I'm sure you feel the same. I couldn't do anything I do without them. Like, let's just be honest. But sometimes, I'm going to lose my thought. Shoot. This happens sometimes when
That's
you speak
okay.
constantly.
I know. But you know what, though? While you were saying that. Okay,
I got it.
Okay.
Sometimes as leaders, when we try too hard to keep things the same, right? We're like, I don't want to recruit, I don't want to rock the boat, I don't want to do anything. When you as a leader aren't looking up to the future, you're not building another vision, your energy is like a vacuum to the present. And that can make you really susceptible to people falling into that I'm not going to walk for me thing. And it can create a toxic culture. Because as leaders, when we have that vision, we have that growth, it creates energy, it attracts people, it allows the growth to move up and up. So I'm always like, when I have trouble, I'm always like, okay, wait, where's your vacuum right now? Is it in the present or is it in the future? Do you have a vision that's compelling to attract people and the people you're with to want to be with you and grow with you? So I think it's essential, because a scarcity mindset as a business owner is not just damaging financially, it's damaging to like your soul and your energy, and like you feel defeated a lot in that space. It's really hard.
Yeah, for sure. Do you ever feel, maybe I'll even be vulnerable here as well too, where it's like, why am I doing what I'm doing? You know, do you ever like, okay, I've done it, I can just pull back now and relax? And I think maybe I'm saying this now because now it's near the end of June, this is where I take my little break, and I'm almost get to that burnout moment. Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah, like I think I've said like so many times, entrepreneurs, like we're often all in. So it's a weird thing that when I get tired, sometimes I'm like, I don't think I'm meant to do this anymore. Meanwhile, like I need a nap or a day off. Like just take a day off. It's like a toddler, right? Like that's your time out. Yeah. But yeah, like when I come to my downtime, I need it. And I mean, I think now with the knee injury, sure, there's been some things that I was like, why did you have to force yourself to like do everything on your schedule? But it's also the same reason that I'm a raft builder. Like my son called me a couple days after the knee and he goes, let me guess, you've already spun this into something positive. And I was like, what are you talking about? My knee needs to be stronger. I got to do Everest Base Camp. Of course there's a reason. He's like, I knew it. So like I can't take the bad of it, the good of it without some of the bad of it. It's just learning to rest. Like I deal with a lot of energy workers, and a medicine woman before I went to do my recent talk said something to me that's been a theme with our coaching team, and she said, can you feel safe out of control? And it was interesting, right? Yeah. Can you feel safe out of control? Like when you're talking about we can't control the future or how do we build things, it's like, can we be in a place of flow where sometimes I feel kind of done with it, but I'm like, it's just part of the process and I know I'm going to have a break, right? Like, I don't know, I think for a lot of people, we can't feel safe out of control. Like it's a kind of a cool thing to think about. Can you be in flow and relaxed and calm, even like knowing you're doing everything that you're meant to do and that there's a reason for things? Yeah.
Who's your coach? Who do you get advice from or help from to get you through those tough times?
I have a few. Like when I wrote my books, I work with Angela Laurier. She's a really fierce like businesswoman out of Washington. I have a lot of respect for her. I've had energy healers, coaches. I was coached by Marianne Williamson. I'm a miracle-minded coach. I've got like 20 certifications, right? So like Evolved, NLP, I have coaches. But for me, typically, like I need to shift energetically. So I'll more go to like shaman or medicine. Well, like I'm very connected to nature and I really like to work with people who believe in that. It helps me. They speak my language. Because in my business, I don't usually need necessarily a new business system. I need to shift how I need to how I need to strategize and align and help our team. That's what I typically need to do. So if there's a stuck piece, it's probably me. But I mean, we have coaches in branding and marketing. Like, we bring in experts when we need it, because we can't afford to just do the figure it out game. It's too expensive.
Right. Yeah, and I think since I've been listening to you and following you too, like I can tell that you're really big on the energy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get political here, but how do you feel today? Because there's a lot of division. You can feel it. The energy it doesn't feel right.
Sure.
You know, and I feel there's so much more division now, not only just in Canada or the US, but around the world.
Yeah.
How do you, especially social media is such an important piece of our lives now. You've got this phone in your hand all the time, you're scrolling, and sometimes you're trying to look for something, you don't know what you're looking for, and all of a sudden now you go down some of these dark rabbit holes.
Sure.
What do you do to protect your energy?
That's a good question. I mean, I think I'm very focused on, like, I love to create, so that helps me protect my energy. Like, sometimes when I start to compare, and I am a believer that comparison is the root of all, discomfort, right? Or fighting with what is. So if I'm fighting with something or I'm comparing, I'll be like, okay, wait, I have this saying that I would say, if you're looking sideways, you're not in it to win, because you're like, the only place you make results is looking forward. So the minute I know, hey, you're looking sideways at what your competitors are doing, I'm like, you have no chance to do anything powerful right now, because you're not creating for yourself. So if I see something negative or I want to talk about it, I don't need to say anything about what they're doing. I can just bring a message that I hope will, like, elevate frequency or help people. But also, like, again, this is why I love Shift, because me at 22, I mean, I wasn't empowered. I wasn't conscious. There was a lot of negativity, and I would have fed into that. It would have empowered me into that. So I'm also very aware that sometimes we see things based on how we are, and telling people to be different creates more of a divide. Like, during COVID, there was so much, and still, division, and some people were just so angry, like, they need to do this or they need to do that. It's like, when somebody really believes in something and you tell them they're wrong and you push at them, all they do is push back. Like, if we can be curious, and we're all guilty of not doing it sometimes, but be curious and ask questions and try to, like, leave more room for conversation, people are a little bit more open, right? But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I lost my dad young during COVID. I mean, I hiked across Spain the first summer of COVID. Like, to me, I have a reverence for life and for freedom and for creating, and I've really learned during some hard times, what the most powerful thing we can do is that old saying, like, be it, right? So if I'm being pulled into dark energy, which in the last couple of years I was definitely at some points, I had to kind of realize, once I raised my frequency, all that stuff was irrelevant, right? Like, I felt like, oh, I've got to fight down here, but that's not what I had to do. I had to alchemize it and transform it. Like, when something bad happens to me, I would say, what needs to happen to make it worth it? Where you'd be so thankful that happened to you. Like, if you can alchemize anything difficult into that, you're a powerful person.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of as well, too, because I remember when I first got into real estate investing and just understanding how inflation was working. And it was really more to protect my wealth. I'm like, I am going to tell everybody what I'm doing, and I'm going to pull them along with me. And it almost gets to this point where it can drag you down, because it can be an anchor. And so, I remember I had this conversation with a friend. He's like, Gary, not everybody wants to do what you want to do. One of the best things anybody's ever told me. And then I was like, oh, I'll just be a beacon. This is what I'm doing. And if you want to come on this journey with me, come along. And so I think that's along the lines of, like, just to ask questions, but not to force what you're doing on anybody else.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was in California, there was a keynote about that, and it was called by Deborah Trappin, a very powerful woman, a lot of respect for her. And her thing was, let them. They're parking over 2 parking spots. Just let them, right? Like, they don't want to cook something the way you do. Just let them. Like, and it was really great how she's like, it's nice to be curious, right? Like, I find as a seeker, you're just curious. Like, what is it I need to take from this? Or why are they doing something different? It's just freeing. Think about it. Like, I love the way she's just let them.
Right.
Like, unless they're hurting, that's different. But we're talking about everyday life.
Yeah, you're right. And even sometimes when I do a talk, I'll say, listen, take what you need and leave the rest. If there's things you just don't like that I said, no problem, just leave it.
Yeah, right? For sure.
And even too on social media, when you see people comment negatively on, I can never go on somebody's page and comment negatively on it, because it's just bringing my negative energy to them. And even just leaving it on me as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think, people do, like, the bigger you get in social media, you get the bit of a thicker skin, but same. I'd rather create something than bring somebody else down.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, shifting a little bit here now, just on the market and where things are going, and what should people do?
Well, it's interesting, because what should people do? I think they should talk to experts they trust. That's the truth of it, because it's just like coming to me and saying, I want to build my team. What should I do? Well, what are you good at, and what's in place that's strong? What's working? What's not? And I think everybody has their own unique goals and portfolio and money or lack of money. Like, the interest rates are scary, and they've impacted people in major ways. And I think some of it is leading people to leverage within real estate, which, I mean, as a single mom, I always did, right? Like, I bought a house on purpose that cost less money and had a rental unit on purpose, because I was like, real estate to me is a point of leverage to give me freedom so I can do other things. So truly, I talked to an expert who is doing this at a high level, because I've been really vocal that if your leadership is capped or fearful, that's the guidance you have. You have the guidance of the essence of the people who are leading you. And we're in here, Gary, like Toronto Real Estate Board, we're at what? Like, they're close to 70,000 or over, like
75,000, something like that.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
But like, I mean, when I was selling, we were still like 60%, we're doing 8 deals or less. Now we're like 80% are doing like 4, like 60% are doing 0 deals. Like, it's really important to have I say sophisticated but experienced representation right now, because you can get scared, just go, I'm not going to buy now, the interest rate, this, that, or the other. But if you have a strategist, they're going to go, okay, where do you want to go? What does it look like? Maybe we need to do a phase 1, a phase 2, a phase 3. And that's like the raft builder. What can we work with now to get you in a better position? So in 2 years or 5 years, you've got equity, or you can move up. So, I mean, that's a high level answer to what you're saying, but real estate is a huge asset for us, and I think we need to be very serious about having well experienced experts.
Yeah, and what was interesting as well too, in 2020 and 2021, there was almost no fear in real estate investing.
Yeah.
And when you go back to even when you first started,
sure,
there was always fear in the market. It's like, is it going to go down? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go sideways? Where the interest rates go? And then all of a sudden, 2 years came by, and like there was no fear. Sure. And then now the fear is back in the market. And to me, I'm like, okay, this is a good time to be jumping back into the market. There's opportunity now. And also you can create win-wins as well too, because there are people that are in situations where they need to get out of it.
Exactly.
Where they didn't know what they were doing when they got into it. Yeah. And now they're like, I just want to get out of this. And I think there's 2 things that are going to happen. One is the ones that made the mistake during those 2 years will learn from it and be better going into it the next time. Yeah. And then the rest will just like, I am never getting back into this ever again. My mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, they told me this is dangerous, and this is what happened to be.
Yeah, you know what? When I was still selling real estate, an article I love so much, because it was based, and I love it because I like educated risk. I really like educated risk. So when people are like, I don't do outright risk, not at all. But the article was talking about, even if you had a fully level market, which we've never had over 25 years or 20 years, if you had amortization, you're still up, even if the market didn't go up at all. And we're talking about years where interest rates were phenomenally higher than they are now. And I loved it because it educated people to put risk into perspective. And I think that's something that's so important, right? When you're in a fear-based mindset, Gary, you could tell them everything in the world about it being a great investment, and logically, right? Like with facts. But when you're in a fear-based mindset, all they'll see is that one piece that's scary, and they're going to, and look for logic to back it up and walk away from the deal.
Right. Yeah. It's that fear of missing out as well too.
Yeah.
That FOMO.
Yeah.
Right. I know even sometimes too, like when we would take clients out and there would be no offers. And they're like, yeah, but something's wrong with the home then. Why is nobody else offering? And as soon as somebody else would offer, they're like, okay, I want it now. I want it now, right? That whole fear of missing out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people still bought investment properties when the interest rates were much higher and still did very well with them. I mean, there's certain periods that were difficult on investors, obviously, but that's why I say strategy. I mean, I'm excited. I'm hoping we have more and more of a chance to keep getting back into the investment market, because I've been building my business. I haven't been focused. So now I'm like, the interest rates, to me, it doesn't matter. It's a long-term strategy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Don't worry about what it's going to do in the next year. Just take a look at it. Where is it going to be 10 years from now?
Exactly.
And if you go with that long-term mindset and a logical thinking, you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. What is your superpower, Kathleen?
Oh my goodness. You know what? My superpower is the exact same thing as my biggest weakness. I really, it sounds weird because like people around me all the time, like, you're so naive. You think everyone's so nice. You think everyone's so whatever. But I was like, but I see that side of them. So when I see people, or like I'm always looking for, hey, you could be really good at this. Have you thought about doing that? Or when people come to me with their goals, to me, we're going to achieve it. Like it's just going to happen. So I think my superpower is I can shift. I truly can shift. And so when people are in my energetic space, to me, it's already real that they're going where they want to go. So I feel like I can hold a container around that, because it's like it happens every day in my life with people around me and our coaches and everyone else. So when I think about the people who've inspired me the most, they saw me and saw my abilities, and they just kept investing that in my head. Like my speaker coach before this talk, and I'm going to be in a wheelchair and all this stuff. And he's like, Kathleen, like what you do is create new voices in people's heads so they have confidence. That's what we do. That's why you work with us, right?
Right.
So it's like, I don't know, if you can do that, it's pretty cool.
I want to touch on this here. We're getting kind of close to the end here.
Mm-hmm.
The disc. I don't know what your disc is. I'm going to guess. Is it a DI or an ID?
Oh, it's so funny you think I have I. Because I'm a big introvert. Like, I love to be on the stage. Oh, yeah, big introvert. Like, I need to go in and protect my energy. And, like, after COVID at conferences, I leave right after the conference because I'm tired. I love it, but I just have no more peopling in me. So people don't know, but I'm pretty level, but I'm a DC, and I am a DC. Like, oh yeah, like
I thought for sure there was an I in there.
No.
Okay.
No, I have to pull out the I and remember, like, and that's why it's better for me to do, talks that are like feeling and energy. Because when I get into business systems, like I'm like, feel like it's too militant. Like you're freaking us out, right?
Okay. Do you know what I am?
I thought you're an ID or a DI.
No. I'm an IS.
Oh, you're the same as Stacy Green on our team.
Yes, I'm an IS.
You're
and
unicorn.
So Darlene is a D. So I got all these crazy ideas. I want to do that, and then she
pulls you, grounds you.
Right, exactly. Focus.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so interesting.
So let's talk about the disc and how important it is, right? Because everybody's like listening, like, what are you talking about these letters? So can you just go through real quick? I know you're certified in it.
Yeah. I'm a trainer's trainer in disc. Love disc. It's helped me like personally and professionally. A lot of people think it's just for hiring, and it's certainly not. So disc is understanding that, Gary, you and I right now are speaking English, but we're not speaking the same, so to speak, like dialect of English. Like you're speaking IS, because IS is focused on relationship. So IS typically are successful because of how they influence other people and how they take care of and nurture relationships. Whereas I'm a DC, right? So a DC is all task oriented. I and S are relationship oriented. D and C are task oriented. But the C is like less expressive, more perfectionist, want it done right away. And the Ds are bottom line organizers, right? Like they're your speculators, all that great stuff. So the D and the I, they will express to you. Doesn't mean they're extroverted, but they'll tell you what's going on, which to me I prefer, right? And then the S and C, it's hard. They have more blind spots for us. We can't see what's going on. So in families or teams, it's really interesting because often you're always hearing from the Ds and the Is, but the S's and the C's are watching everything that's going on. And if you don't ask them for feedback, you lose all this knowledge, right? And the D and the Is have the most blind spots personally. Right. We don't see because we're too busy trying to be out there expressing. We forget, like we're missing all these things that the people who are listening are taking in. So it's really, really powerful. Like my Myers-Briggs is INTJ, which is like 0.08% of the like full population for women. It's like the mastermind, like everything's connected for me. So I have that gift with systems because everything's holistic for me, right? Whereas like yours is a little bit of a unicorn, the IS, because you can flex into like process and systems and go through like how we do things and why. Like the S's are the guardian of values, right? It's not enough to get something done. It's like we want to do it honestly or do it by the right methods, and then I will influence people. So like our director of operations is the same personality because I'm a really quick pace of business. So when you understand DISC, you also understand who you need to buffer, because I need people who are slower pace of business, but I drive them crazy. So I need to buffer them with Stacy. That's how it works.
Do you think partners or couples, people who are married should do the DISC? Because I can tell you when Darlene and I did it, it was such a game changer. Because like, oh, now I know why you're doing what you're doing. And as she understood why I was doing what I was doing, and then it also allowed us to say, okay, you do this within the business, and I'll do this within the business.
It's interesting. I 100% do. Like, I think I've had just as much or more out of it personally than professionally. We use it in our whole business. But yeah, you literally, it's exactly like growing up, I thought everybody was crazy. I really did. I was like, people, they're not logical. What's going on? And then I found out, oh, they're not. Like, they see the world differently, and I see the world differently. So now I can explain myself. So, I mean, over the years when I was single and dating, it would be funny because if somebody knew disc, I learned not to tell them I knew, because usually I can say it right away and it freaks people out. They're like, are you a mind reader? I'm like, no, like I'm trained in personality. Like I know. And then they go home and be like, I think I did something at work. Yeah, I'm exactly what you said. That freaks me out, right? Yeah. So it gives you a lot of ability not to ever control other people, but to adapt, to speak in a language that's easier for them to process. And that's really important.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's great, and we do that for any time we're hiring somebody, or we do that if we're mentoring somebody and they want to invest in real estate. And then they can talk to each other. They can say, okay, look, this is who you are. This is who I am. And it makes such a huge difference. It really does.
Yeah, it's how you make decisions, right?
Yeah, for sure. Best and worst day of your life?
Oh, my goodness. I don't know if I've had the best day of my life. I mean, I could easily, so when my kids are born, I'm a woman, having your kids is painful. I had my daughter at home. I mean, I don't know. It was great to have her there, but you know what? There's been so many amazing things. Like I'd say like accomplishments. I've gotten to do some cool things. But in business, when I got the award, like iconic leader making the world a better place, that was really like, I was like, that's what I'd only dreamed of being able to one day do. So I mean, that recognition was really important to me.
And the award that you're talking about is?
From the International Women's Business Forum. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and that really meant a lot because again, like the honor of even thinking I could have that embodiment was so huge for me that like I cried when I heard it. Was a big deal for me. So that was really beautiful to give back, right?
Yeah,
it was important. Thank you. And you know what? Worst day, I don't know. There's been a couple. Like I'd say those rock bottom days, like coming on the bus when I found out my dad had died, or when I left the prior coaching company and like I walked away from everything and I was alone. Like on Christmas, I remember like those rock bottom days. Those were pretty bad, but you rise back up from them.
Yeah. All right. I want to wrap it up with this here. How do you start your day? I think a lot of people have difficulties with that. Where they get up and the first thing they do is they're either turn the news on, or they're on social media, or they're on their phones. What do you do?
Well, it's funny you asked me this right now because you guys can't see me at home, but I literally have a brace from my ankle to the top of my thigh. So right now I'm starting my day a little bit differently, icing my knee mostly. But typically, like I like to be active. I love to go for a walk or go to the gym or go to yoga, like for years, or CrossFit. I like those early mornings, but like women's hormones are a bit different. Like doing the super early, grind it out over time creates a lot of burnout. So I'm really careful about that, listening to my body. But for me, just being outside in nature, like my best days start like that. Yeah.
That's good. You know what? I remember when I went to your event, I think the first one, maybe about 3 years, maybe 4 years ago, and you talked about yoga. And I'd done yoga before, but I did hot yoga. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going back to yoga ever again.
Really?
Then it was way too hot. The one that I went to, way too hot. So then I went to, I've got a chef that I use when I'm out up in cottage country. So I went to him, he's older, I think he's in the 60s. And I go, hey, you're looking really good. What are you doing? And he goes, yoga. I'm like, no way. And he grabs his ankle and he literally puts it like up into like his stomach region.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's incredible. He goes, yeah, if you'd have seen me a year ago, it was like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I started yoga last summer and I do it 3 times a week now. I love it.
You love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
I almost feel like I have no more pain in my body.
It's the mind-body connection with yoga is phenomenal. And I'm researching, of course, knee, and they're like, one of the best things is yoga. I'm like, thank you. Go back.
It's incredible. And it's a time of the day. It's like I start at 7. My phone is off. And in my mind, even though I might have a lot of things going on, then all of a sudden it's like, how do I put my body into this position?
Yeah, you forget.
and I just forget about all the things I'm worried about and just focusing on my body and my mind.
Absolutely. See, that's why I really like going to the studio. I like the heat, because it gets to a point where it's a moving meditation and you forget yourself and you can't have your phone in there, you can't have anything, and you just give in. And at the end of class, you're like, I didn't think about anything but this for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. So I did go back to hot yoga as well.
Yeah.
So I'm back in it. I love the
Good.
Listen, Kathleen, this has been great hanging out with you. Any last pieces or words of advice that you can share?
I'm going to go back to what I said before, don't sink, don't bob, build a raft. I mean, we have a small series on YouTube right now. We have two, one on expanding your capacity, but one on raft builders. Like, what are they and the 6 principles of raft builders? So I'm going to leave on that because I can give people extra resources on it, and truly I believe in it.
Awesome. Kathleen, thank you so much. If anybody wants to learn more about you or get in contact with you, how do they do that?
We're all over social media, so Kathleen Black Inc. or Kathleen Black on Instagram, Facebook, and our website is, we're actually shifting it, so I'll say the one now, ittakes.team.
All right, awesome. Kathleen,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for, I guess, walking in, hobbling in.
My pleasure. Anytime,
I appreciate
Gary.
it. Take care.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That was good.
Good. I hope I'm not all over the place for you. Sometimes they laugh. They're like,
No.
I'm like, I know.
No. It was good. It was good.
Good.
I appreciate that. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It was good. All right. So we hit the record here.